Crimson Veil, Part 1, The Night She Chose Him. The skies above Ashaterra churned with storms of glimmering scarlet dust. Every flare of alien lightning illuminated the fractured landscape. Stone ridges cracked by ancient wars, obsidian plains still warm from the day's battles. The war between humanity and the Kaerathi Dominion had left scars on every horizon. And yet, tonight, something moved across the battlefield that no human scout expected. A ripple of silver light shimmered between the tents at the human outpost. Even before the figure appeared, Commander Rion Hale felt the air change. A strange pressure, as though the world itself had stopped to draw breath. He froze, his hand hovering over the grip of his weapon. His instincts screamed danger. Then the glow intensified, shaped itself, sharpened into form. She stepped forward. The queen of the Kaerathi, Lysandra Vael, entered his tent as if reality had parted for her. 7 feet tall, her frame lithe and powerful, her skin shifting in waves of living opal. Though her people were once vampiric, they hadn't required blood in millennia. Their bodies pulsed with life sustained by a technology beyond anything humans could describe. Living nanoflux, a system of microscopic star-forged threads that replaced every biological hunger. Even so, ancient rumors clung to her like a shadow. Warrior queen, conqueror, ageless sovereign, the kind of being humans feared, not merely for strength but for what she represented. Yet when her eyes, twin rings of silver light, met Rion's, he saw something he never expected. Wariness and caution. Not fear, but awareness. As though she too recognized the razor's edge they stood upon. "You are Commander Rion Hale," she said. Her voice carried a resonance that felt like vibrations in the bones. Melodic, layered, and unnervingly calm. Rion swallowed. "I am, Your Majesty," he corrected himself quickly. "Lysandra Vael. That name," she murmured, "is for my people. For tonight there is no crown." He blinked. "Then why are you here?" She regarded him for a long, unnervingly silent moment. The storm outside roared, yet the inside of the tent felt impossibly still. "I left my guard behind," she said. "I walked alone across miles of contested land. And then, more quietly, I chose this tent because I sensed something honest." Rion felt heat prick his skin. "You sensed me?" Her gaze softened, not warm but observant, evaluating, almost curious. "My people perceive intention," she said, "a fragment of the living flux that moves within all sentient minds. You are steady, truthful, dangerous in ways your weapons do not reflect." "I'm just a soldier," Rion said. "A soldier," she answered gently, "who did not raise his weapon when the most dangerous ruler on this planet stepped into his shelter." The realization hit him. She could have walked into any fortified Kaerathi bastion. She chose him. "You need protection," he said. "Not a question, an understanding." "I need time," she corrected. "Time and a mind unfettered by politics or fear, you humans." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "You adapt, you feel deeply, you fight for intangible things. This interests me." He gestured to the only seat in the tent. "You're welcome to rest here." She did not sit immediately. Instead, she walked a slow, deliberate circle around the tent, examining his gear, his maps, the photo tucked into the corner of his datapad. With every movement, her cloak rippled like liquid starlight. "You keep your space with precision," she noted. "Order in a world of chaos." "I have to," he answered. "It keeps people alive." Only then did she sit. A queen, resting in a human soldier's tent. The galaxy would never believe it. Rion kept watch, but his attention kept drifting to her. Her stillness, the controlled rise and fall of her breath, the quiet hum of nanoflux beneath her skin like distant starlight. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Lysandra broke the silence. "Why do you fight?" she asked softly. He exhaled. "For the people I love. For the ones who can't fight for themselves. For the hope that even a small act can change the direction of a war." "Hope," she repeated as if tasting the word. "We lost that concept long ago." "You can regain it," Rion said. She tilted her head, almost amused. "Strange to hear such confidence from a species whose bones break so easily." "And yet," he replied, "we stand here alive." She lowered her gaze, studying him with something like intrigue. "Yes, you do." Their conversation deepened, first about tactics, then culture, then the failures and triumphs of both species. She asked questions no diplomat had ever dared ask. He answered without fear. Somewhere between one topic and the next, the space between them grew warmer. Not romantic, not yet, but human. And for her, that was something far rarer. When a distant rumble signaled approaching danger, Rion rose instinctively, reaching for his weapon. Lysandra rose too, but not in alarm, in readiness. If she was afraid, she did not show it. What she showed instead was something far more surprising: trust. "Commander Hale," she said quietly, "stand beside me." He did. The storm outside howled, the night thickened, and without knowing how or why, Rion realized that the moment she entered his tent, the war had shifted. Not because she sought shelter, but because she chose him. Chose to trust him. Chose to learn from him. Chose, perhaps, to see humanity anew. And as the horizon lit with the glow of incoming enemy patrols, Rion understood something deeper. This was not the end of a war. This was the beginning of a bond that would tear open the destiny of two species. A bond built on respect, courage, and something neither of them dared name. Not yet. The wind outside the tent rose in a harsh, spiraling gust, tugging at the canvas as if the storm itself wanted in. Rion stepped to the flap and peered out into the night. The skies of Ashaterra were lit by electric veins of crimson lightning, their glow catching on jagged stone ridges and the sharp silhouettes of human tents. Beyond the encampment, movement flickered, shadows sliding where no patrol should be. "Rogue units?" he muttered. "Not mine," Lysandra replied, already at his side. He hadn't heard her move. Up close, she was even more unnerving. And yet in that moment he didn't feel fear, only awareness. Of the faint glow under her skin, of the way something unseen thrummed around her, like the distant hum of a ship's engines. She lifted her hand, fingers spreading slightly. The air changed. Rion felt a faint tingle along his arms, like static brushing over his nerves. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Listening," she said simply. Her eyes unfocused, gaze fixed on some invisible horizon. The silver rings in her irises brightened, tiny threads of light branching outward beneath her skin along her neck and temples. The nanoflux within her, whatever star-born engineering her people had woven into their bodies, had awakened. For a long breath, the tent felt like the calm center of a storm. Then her pupils sharpened again. "They hunt for a signal," she said. "For me. They are not here for your camp." Rion's jaw tightened. "Then they're getting neither." He grabbed his rifle and slung an extra charge pack over his shoulder, checking the compact devices he kept for emergencies. Improvised energy snares, repurposed shields, a small EMP charge. He'd learned long ago that human standard issue was never quite enough. "You survived by making more out of less." "You intend to fight at my side?" Lysandra asked. He glanced at her. "You chose my tent. You stand on my ground. This makes you my responsibility." Something flickered in her expression. Amusement, maybe, or respect. "Humans," she murmured, "and your insistence on responsibility." "We call it duty," he said. She tilted her head. "And if duty requires you to die?" He gave her a half smile. "Then I make sure the cost was worth it." For the first time since arriving, her composure slipped. Not entirely, but just enough for him to see the subtle shift. A softness, a quiet disturbance. "My people," she said, "once believed survival justified any cost." "Once?" he asked. Her gaze drifted past him, into a history he could only guess at. 20,000 of your years ago," she said, "we were what your myths would call vampires, dependent on the blood of others. We fed on 100 worlds. We built empires on the fear of lesser species. We were strong and starving." Rion watched her, caught between morbid curiosity and a strange ache of empathy. "What changed?" he asked. "Necessity," she said. "We stood on the edge of extinction. Predators who had emptied every hunting ground." Her fingers brushed the inside of her wrist, where faint threads of light pulsed beneath the skin. "Our greatest minds forged a lattice of, there is no human word, a web of living fragments that could drink starlight, gravity, ambient flux. It grew inside us, rewrote us." The hunger ended. "No more blood," Rion said quietly. "No more blood," she confirmed. "For 20 millennia we have survived without taking a single drop from another sentient being." There was no pride in her tone, just fact, but he could hear the weight behind it, the shame of what had been, the enormity of the shift. "And yet," he said, "everyone still fears you as if you'll devour them in their sleep." She looked at him sharply. "Including you?" He thought about it, about how his hand had hovered over his weapon when she appeared, about the propaganda, the tales of the bloodborne queen. "I did," he admitted. "Before you sat in my tent, before you asked why we fight, Before you told me about your people choosing to starve their hunger rather than their conscience. For a heartbeat, she simply stared at him. Then, slowly, her shoulders relaxed. The tension he hadn't even fully recognized in her posture eased, just a fraction. You are difficult, Lysandra said. Rion blinked. Excuse me? You do not fit cleanly into fear, or hatred, or worship, she said. You insist on asking what is underneath. We call that being human, he replied. And we, she said softly, call that dangerous. A crack of distant weapons fire snapped them both back to the present. Rion stepped out of the tent, the cold night air slamming into him like a wall. The storm above roared, scarlet lightning flashing in the clouds. He moved swiftly, motioning for Lysandra to follow him along the ridgeline overlooking their sector of the valley. From here, he could see the movement clearly. 3 separate strike teams picking their way across the rocks with too much confidence and too much silence to be anything but elite. 3 squads, he said. Minimum, maybe more in the shadows. Lysandra lifted her chin, the nanoflux glow in her eyes intensifying again. 5, she corrected. 3 in front, 2 wide, circling. Discipline fractured. They are eager. They are impatient. They are not expecting you. Rion huffed a quiet breath. That's their first mistake. He reached into a small cache hidden beneath a slab of stone and pulled out compact devices no bigger than his palm, thin discs etched with his own messy handwriting. He slapped one into her hand. What is this? She asked. An energy snare, he said. Field-rigged. It triggers when they hit the valley's choke point. Your people's exosuits run on layered conduction paths. This throws them into a tantrum. Crude, she said, examining it closely. Yes, he said. Crude and effective. That earned him an actual, unmistakable smile. Small, sharp, real. I begin to see, she murmured, why my strategists call your species troublesome. He grinned back. We try. Together they moved quickly, Rion placing the snares at key points along the narrow approaches, while Lysandra swept the area with senses he could not name. They moved well together, he realized, not because they'd trained, but because neither of them wasted motion. Do you trust me? He asked as they slid into cover behind a jagged outcrop overlooking the valley. Trust is layered, she said. That's not an answer. It is the only one I can give, she replied. Then, after a breath, I trust that you will fight. I trust that you will not flee. I trust that you will not betray your own conscience. He considered that. It's a start. And you? She asked, turning her gaze to him. Do you trust me? He thought of the sword, quiet way she moved, the power humming under her skin, the way rogue elements of her own people were risking everything to capture her, and also the way she had chosen to walk alone, crown unseen, into a human soldier's tent. I trust, he said slowly, that you could kill me in less than a second and haven't. I trust that you mean it when you say your people stopped feeding on blood. I trust that you could be anywhere else right now, and you're here. His eyes met hers steadily. And I trust, he finished, that if I stand with you in this valley, you'll stand with me. Silence fell between them, but it felt different this time. Charged, not empty. Then, Lysandra said, let us give your enemies a story they will not survive to tell. Figures appeared at the far end of the valley, sleek outlines gliding from shadow to shadow, armor faintly reflecting the storm-bruised sky. Rogue Kaerathi, their movements efficient, almost beautiful in their precision. Rion's hand hovered over the trigger on his remote. Steady, he whispered under his breath. Lysandra's eyes narrowed, following their path. The first squad stepped fully into the choke point. Rion pressed the trigger. The snares ignited with a sharp, snapping crack, lines of crackling force lashing up around the scouts like lightning made into nets. Exosuits spasmed, joints locking, systems sputtering. Before they even finished stumbling, Lysandra moved. She was a blur of motion. Grace without waste, speed without chaos. The nanoflux in her body ignited fully now, silvery light threading under her skin, down her arms, around her clenched fists. She hit the first rogue like a falling star, striking armor at precise weak points with practiced brutality. No killing blows, just breaks, just endings. Rion covered her, shots from his rifle, precise and deliberate, targeting joints, weapons, sensory arrays. He didn't need to be the strongest. He needed to be the cleverest. And he was. A second squad emerged, trying to flank. Rion dropped behind a rock, fingers flying over the improvised EMP charge. He hurled it just as they cleared the ridge, watching as a sphere of rippling disruption tore through their formation, flickering their shields and scrambling their targeting systems. They staggered. Lysandra was already there. No wasted effort. No roaring battle cries. Just clean, efficient, devastating movement. "You're frightening when you work with someone else," Rion called over the din. "You are infuriating when you joke during combat," she shot back, hurling one rogue bodily into another. "That's how we keep breathing," he said. A third squad broke off, realizing too late that the valley was a trap. They tried to retreat along the ridge. Rion slid down a slope, boots scraping rock, and cut them off with a crossfire, forcing them back into the open. One lunged for him, exosuit still partially functioning, a blade of energized metal shooting out from its gauntlet. Rion was fast, but not that fast. The strike never landed. Lysandra was between them in an instant, one hand catching the attacking gauntlet, the other slamming into the rogue's chest. Energy flared, swallowing the weapon's glow. The rogue crumpled. Rion stared at her. The entire exchange had taken less than a heartbeat. He realized very simply that she had just saved his life without even thinking about it. "Careful, Commander," she said calmly, though her eyes were brighter now, her breath just slightly quicker. "You are breakable." "Thanks," he managed. "I'll work on that." The last of the rogue squads faltered. One by one, they fell. Disabled, disarmed, disoriented. Some fled, scrambling over the rocks, retreating into the storm-torn distance. Rion didn't bother pursuing. They had made their point. They were alive. He stood on the ridge again, chest heaving, watching as the storm rolled on above them, uncaring. Beside him, Lysandra lowered her hands. The glow beneath her skin dimmed, the humming presence softening back to a quieter thrum. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked tired, not physically, not really, something deeper. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "It is noisy," she said, fingertips briefly touching her temple. "The nanoflux calculates continuously in battle. Thousands of paths, thousands of ways you could have died. It is a burden to hear all the deaths that did not happen." He went quiet. He hadn't thought of it like that. "Then we make them worth something," he said. "Every risk, every path you close. Every life you keep on this side of the line." She studied him again, as if he were a puzzle that kept refusing to stay solved. "You risked yourself for me," she said, "knowing they sought my capture, not yours. Knowing it could turn your own people against you if they knew." Rion shrugged one shoulder. "I don't need permission to do what I know is right." "That is what I do not understand," she replied. "Your body is fragile, your civilization is young, your weapons are inventive, but crude. By every calculation, you are outmatched. And yet you stand in front of me and say you will fight for me without condition." He didn't look away. "Because someone has to," he said. "Because power doesn't erase the fact that you're standing here alone with enemies on both sides. Because I've seen enough to know you're not what the galaxy says you are." He hesitated, then added more quietly, "And because I'd rather be the kind of man who protects than the kind who watches." The storm's thunder seemed distant suddenly. The only sound he really heard was the steady pulse of his own heartbeat, and the silence that stretched between them, full and heavy and strangely electric. Lysandra took a single step closer, not enough to threaten, enough to close the distance. "You speak as if you value my life," she said softly, "not just for what it means strategically, but for what it means as mine." "I do," Rion answered. No hesitation, no flinch. She searched his face for the lie and found none. For an eternal moment, the queen of a post-vampiric empire and a human commander stood inches apart on a scarred alien ridge, the remnants of battle cooling around them. Respect was there, undeniable, solid, already anchored. But beneath it something else began to stir. A quiet warmth, a pull, not possessive, not greedy, just present, a fragile beginning. "You confuse me, Commander Hale," she whispered. "Good," he murmured back. "Maybe confusion is the first step toward change." She let out a breath that might almost have been a laugh. "Perhaps," she said, "or disaster. Those two walk together a lot," he replied. "At least in human history." She turned away then, looking back over the valley. For all her ageless bearing, she seemed suddenly very present. Not myth, not legend, just a being standing in the aftermath of a battle, feeling the weight of choices. "The rogue factions will not stop," she said. "They will report this. They will spin it as treason, a queen who stood beside a human defending his camp. "Let them," Rion said. "We'll keep standing." "We?" she echoed. He met her gaze again. "As long as you're on this ground," he said, voice steady, "you're not alone." A long silence. Then she inclined her head, a gesture no human had ever received from her before. "Then we will face them," Lysandra said. "Together." The word settled between them like a promise. Together. As they walked back toward the camp, side by side, Rion felt something inside him shift. Fear had fallen away. Awe had softened. What remained surprised him. He liked her. Not just as a queen, not just as an ally, but as a mind. Sharp, fierce, wounded, trying to carry a past too heavy for anyone to bear alone. And in the flicking stormlight, as they moved through shadow and lightning, he caught her glancing at him once, quickly, not to assess his threat, not to judge his usefulness, just to see him. The smallest seed of something new rooted itself in that shared glance. Not hunger, not conquest, not worship, care. It was small, it was fragile, but it was there. And that, Rion knew, was how revolutions truly began. Not with armies, but with two people choosing to stand closer instead of farther apart. The bond deepens. Trust becomes intimacy of the mind. Respect becomes something warmer. Danger closes in. The storm eased as night stretched across Ashaterra, turning the battlefield into an expanse of dark glass and glowing embers. The rogue Kaerathi scouts had retreated into the shadows, but their presence lingered like a bruise in the air. Rion led Lysandra toward the heart of the human outpost, a circle of low tents, dim lights, and quiet soldiers who believed the night was uneventful. None of them knew their commander had fought alongside the queen of a race ancient enough to have outlived empires he'd never heard of. He stopped just outside his tent. "You should rest," he said. "So should you," Lysandra replied. Her voice held no command, only quiet concern. She rarely revealed anything beneath her mask of queenly composure. Yet now, in the soft glow of the outpost lamps, Rion saw the faint exhaustion in her stance, the aftermath of the nanoflux burning through millions of calculations, the toll of seeing too many potential deaths. "You're tired," he said gently. "I do not tire as humans do," she answered, then softer. "But I feel the weight of this night." He nodded and stepped aside, allowing her to enter his tent first. She ducked under the flap with the silent grace of someone carved from moonlight. Inside, the space felt different now, less like an improvised sanctuary and more like a place the universe itself had shifted to make room for her. She stood there quietly, examining the map table, the sidearm holster hanging from a hook, the blanket he'd thrown aside when she first appeared. Every object seemed to carry some meaning to her, though he could only guess at what. "Why do you care?" Lysandra asked suddenly. Rion froze mid-step. "Care about what?" "About whether I rest, about whether I survive." Her gaze pierced him. "You have no reason. Your people have no reason." He stepped closer, not threatening but deliberate, until they stood only a few feet apart. "You weren't alone on that ridge," he said. "You stood with me. You fought with me. That matters." "That is not enough," she murmured. "It's enough for me." A soft silence stretched between them, warm and fragile. Outside, human voices murmured faintly, a patrol shift changing. The clatter of metal, the rustle of boots on stone. But here in this dim tent lit by a single lantern, it felt like the world had shrunk to just two people. Rion sat on a crate, running a hand through his hair. "Your own people are hunting you. Humanity barely tolerates your presence. You're standing between two worlds that both want something from you." She watched him for a moment, then lowered herself to sit across from him, graceful even in this cramped human shelter. "That," she admitted, "is the truth I've avoided speaking aloud." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "So speak it now." Her eyes, silver and ancient, met his. "My council believes I'm weakening," she said, "that the centuries of peace have softened me. They are wrong. Peace strengthens a people far more than conquest. But they fear change, and they fear that my alliance with humanity will threaten their power." "You came alone," he said softly, "because you couldn't trust your own court." "I could trust none of them with my life," she said, "but I trusted you." Rion's breath caught. "You barely knew me." "I knew enough," she said simply, her head tilted, curiosity flickering through her gaze. "When I told you my past, that my kind once consumed blood, you did not recoil." He shrugged. "People change, species change, we evolve." She watched him, unmoving, as though studying an unfamiliar star. "You see potential where most see threat," she murmured. "You see intention where others see history." He didn't answer, because he didn't need to. The truth sat between them now, quiet and undeniable. Lysandra stood again, walking slowly toward the tent entrance. She paused near the flap, her back to him. "Rion," she said, her voice softer than before. "There is another reason I came." He looked up sharply. "What reason?" She hesitated, a rare crack in her armor. "I wish to understand," she said, "why humans feel so deeply that they would risk everything for another being, even one not of their kind." He blinked. "You wanted to learn about compassion, about connection," she corrected, "about that strange force that binds your kind together even when logic says it should not." "Love," he whispered before he could stop himself. She turned, slowly. "That word," she said. "Explain it." Rion's heart stumbled. "It's not simple. Nothing worth understanding ever is," she replied. He stood, walking toward her until only a single breath separated them. "Love is choosing someone," he said quietly. "Even when it's hard, even when it's risky, even when it defies reason." Her pupils widened slightly. "And you choose so easily?" "No," he said softly, "but some choices feel right even before you understand them." For several heartbeats, Lysandra said nothing. She simply watched him with an expression so unreadable it bordered on sacred. Then she spoke in a whisper nearly too quiet to hear. "Your word frightens my people." "And you?" he asked. She held his gaze. "I do not know yet." It was the closest she had ever come to vulnerability. A soft alarm beeped on Rion's wrist comm, a proximity ping. He glanced at it. "Another squad is circling the far ridge." Lysandra's expression hardened immediately. "More rogues?" "Likely, but they're keeping distance. They're watching. They test your defense." Her voice lowered. "Or mine." Rion checked his rifle, though he did not step away from her. "We'll handle it," he said. "Together," she echoed, but with a tone different from before. Deeper, more certain. She reached out suddenly. Her hand hovered inches above his chest, not touching, but close enough that he felt the faint static warmth of her nanoflux humming through the air. "The flux reacts to intention," she murmured. "It senses what your body does not say." He swallowed. "And what does it sense now?" Her silver eyes lifted to his. "Calm," she said, "and something else." A pause. "Something I want to understand." His pulse kicked, but he held still. "What do you feel?" he asked. She let her hand fall, not breaking the space between them. "I feel that you are dangerous in ways my counsel was right to fear." Her voice softened, "but not for the reasons they believe." "What reasons, then?" She stepped closer, barely an inch, but enough to deepen the air between them. "You change the way I see," she whispered. "You make me question what I have been certain of for centuries." The admission stole the breath from his lungs. Outside, the wind howled through the outpost. Soldiers muttered. The storm threatened to crack open the sky again. But inside the tent, everything was still. Rion reached out, not bold, not claiming, just a gentle human gesture, and brushed his fingertips across her wrist, where the light, threaded veins pulsed softly. She didn't move away. If anything, her breath caught, the faintest shift of surprise making her chest rise slightly. "Lysandra," he said quietly, "you're not alone anymore." The light under her skin rippled, like a heartbeat echoing through starlight. "And that," she whispered, "terrifies me in ways war never has." He didn't release her wrist, and she didn't step back. The storm outside broke fully, lightning cracking across the sky. Inside the tent, a queen who had lived 20 millennia felt something stir inside her. A fragile spark she had not felt since her species abandoned hunger, violence, predation. A spark she could not name, not yet. But it was real, and Rion felt it too. They stood together, facing the storm, the dangers outside, and something far more dangerous inside, a connection beginning to take root. The storm grows. The Queen's people close in. Humanity notices something it shouldn't. And the fragile connection between Lysandra and Rion becomes impossible for either to deny. Dawn arrived on Ashaterra like a blade. The red storm clouds faded into a bruised purple sky, stretching across the jagged horizon. Rion stepped out of the tent first, scanning the ridge lines, his rifle slung casually across his back. Behind him, the fabric rustled. Lysandra emerged slowly, the rising sun casting a halo of gold through the translucent edges of her cloak. Light refracted through the nanoflux in her body, shimmering like liquid starlight. Rion swallowed, realizing once again, she didn't just walk into a place, she changed it. Your people wake early, she noted, watching the movement of soldiers around the outpost. They're trained to, he said. No one sleeps deeply on Ashaterra. Except you, she said quietly. You slept for 3 hours after the battle. He blinked. You were watching me? Her gaze didn't waver. You watched over me first. Consider it. Balance. Balance. He didn't know if it was a Kaerathi concept or something she borrowed from humans to make herself understood. But it warmed him anyway. Before he could respond, a sharp call echoed across the outpost. Commander Hale, eyes front. Rion's stomach tightened. Lieutenant Mara Vance, his second-in-command, strode toward them with 3 soldiers in tow. The moment she saw Lysandra's towering form, her hand flew to her holster. Rion stepped forward fast. Stand down. But sir, I said stand down. Mara's eyes darted between him and the Queen, suspicion carving sharp lines in her face. Sir, what is that doing in your tent? Lysandra's posture shifted, just slightly, her chin lifting, her shoulders straightening. Not defensive. Regal. Rion stepped between them, his voice iron steady. She's under my protection. Mara stared at him, stunned. Commander, she's the most dangerous being within 100 sectors. And she saved our lives last night, he replied. While you were sleeping. A ripple went through the soldiers behind her, whispered disbelief, confused glances. Lysandra said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Mara's jaw tightened. Sir, the council back home will not approve of this. You're risking your rank, your future. Rion cut her off. I know what I'm risking. He didn't look back at Lysandra, but he felt her watching him, intensely, quietly, deeply. Mara took a cautious step closer. Commander, tell me she didn't force you. Rion's voice was calm. She didn't. You're telling me she willingly stood beside a human soldier in a battle? Yes. And you expect me to believe that? Lysandra spoke then, her tone soft but carrying the gravity of a star collapsing. You may believe what you wish, she said, but your commander fought with honor, and I do not stand beside beings I do not respect. Every word fell like a crystal blade. Mara's hand froze on her weapon. Rion watched his lieutenant's face shift, fear, awe, confusion, and something else. Recognition. We'll notify High Command, Mara muttered, whether you want us to or not. Rion nodded. I figured. Mara hesitated, then whispered, Be careful, sir. They won't see what you see. She turned and left with her unit. When the last soldier vanished behind a row of tents, Lysandra finally exhaled, a soft sound, almost human. You risked your standing, she said, without hesitation. You're not a threat to my people, he replied. She tilted her head. Many would disagree. Then they can meet me on the ridge, he said roughly. I've handled worse. Her eyes softened. You say that, she murmured, and your voice does not tremble. He shrugged lightly. Maybe I'm getting used to you. A faint spark of amusement flickered in her eyes. Dangerous. What? Getting used to you? Yes. Then quieter, for both of us. It didn't take long. By midday, the hum of an approaching dropship echoed across the outpost. Rion and Lysandra stood on a rocky ledge overlooking the landing pad as the sleek vessel touched down, kicking up dust and red sand. A human figure stepped out, Ambassador Rion Hale. The youngest diplomat in 3 sectors, sharp-minded, silver-eyed, a man whose words could build alliances or start wars. He walked with purpose toward Rion, ignoring everyone else. But when he saw Lysandra, he stopped mid-stride. A breath, a beat, and then, Commander Hale, Rion said slowly. Explain to me why the Queen of the Kaerathi Dominion is standing beside you like a trusted ally. Rion held his ground. Because she is one. Lysandra watched them silently, measured, unreadable, but standing just close enough to Rion that the intention could not be mistaken. Soren's eyes narrowed. You understand how this looks? Yes, Rion said. It looks like cooperation. It looks like treason, Soren snapped. On both sides. His gaze flicked between them. The Kaerathi will think she's conspiring with us. Humans will think you've been compromised, and the rogue factions. He shook his head. They will wage a shadow war to destroy both of you before something unnatural grows from this. Rion stiffened. Unnatural? Soren lowered his voice. Humans don't stand this close to their enemies. They don't speak to them in private. They don't. He glanced at Lysandra. They don't look at them the way you're looking at her. Rion didn't flinch. And how is that? Soren's jaw tightened, like she's not supposed to be your enemy. Silence. Then Lysandra spoke, not to Soren, but to Rion. Is that what you believe? That I am your enemy? Her voice was quiet, too quiet. Rion turned fully toward her. No, he said softly, not anymore. Lysandra blinked, slow, almost stunned. Soren made an exasperated sound. Then we have a problem, Commander, a very large one. Lysandra stepped forward, silver eyes locked on the ambassador. There is no problem, she said, not unless you create one. You misunderstand, Soren said. The problem is that the galaxy is watching. If anyone believes the two of you have formed some kind of personal alliance, he gestured vaguely, searching for words humans never needed before. It could destabilize every treaty we have. Rion answered before Lysandra could. Then let them think what they want, he said. I'm not going to step away from her. Lysandra inhaled sharply. Ambassador Soren stared at him, stunned. You're willing to risk war for this? Rion didn't hesitate. I'm willing to risk war for what's right. Lysandra took another small step closer, not touching, but undeniably choosing proximity. Then we are aligned, she murmured. Soren rubbed his temples. This is not alignment, this is madness. Maybe, Rion said. But madness with truth at its core tends to scare people into progress. Lysandra's eyes softened, not with affection yet, but with something just as dangerous, recognition. You are unlike any human I have known, she whispered. And you're unlike anyone I've ever met, Rion replied. Soren exhaled sharply. This is exactly what I feared, the private conversation. Soren escorted them to Rion's tent for a private discussion. Once inside, he paced, muttering under his breath, before finally stopping. Listen to me carefully, he said, voice low. What is happening between you two, whatever it is, cannot be seen, not by soldiers, not by the Kaerathi, not by anyone. Rion crossed his arms. We have nothing to hide. That's the problem, Soren said. You think it's nothing. Everyone else will think it's everything. He turned to Lysandra. And you, your majesty, your people will call this a betrayal. She lifted her chin. My council has called me many things. They do not decide my alliances. That's not what they'll see, he said. What will they see? She asked. Soren hesitated, then spoke the truth plainly. They'll see a queen who trusts a human more than her own court. Lysandra froze, and Rion watched the way that truth landed, not in fear, but as if it struck a place inside her that had been quietly breaking for years. She spoke slowly. That is not weakness, that is clarity. It doesn't matter what you believe, Soren said. What matters is that your people don't believe it. He turned to Rion again. And humans won't either. They'll say your judgment is compromised, that you're being manipulated. Rion's voice was calm steel. I'm not manipulated. Soren stared hard at him. You sure about that, Commander? Lysandra stepped forward, her voice low and dangerous. If you accuse him again, Ambassador, I will remove the words from your mouth. Soren blanched. Rion hid a smile. See? Soren said weakly. This is exactly the problem. Lysandra didn't care. She turned to Rion. Her tone softened to something almost tender. They do not understand, she said. No, Rion said. They don't. Soren threw up his hands. Fine, but listen to me. If you continue this closeness, it will ignite every fear the Council has about your species, and every paranoia the Alliance has about hers. Rion stepped closer to Lysandra, only slightly, but enough that the subtext became visible even to Soren. I won't step back, he said softly. Lysandra's breath caught. Soren groaned. That's it. War. Absolute war. We're not starting a war, Rion said. We're ending one. How? Soren demanded. Rion looked at Lysandra, holding her gaze with quiet, unshakable conviction. By trusting each other when no one else will. Silver light flickered under her skin, the nanoflux responding to something beyond logic, perhaps beyond species. Rion, she whispered, you should not speak to me this way. Why not? It makes this difficult. What does? This. She gestured softly between them. This thing neither of us has named. Rion's voice dropped. We will name it when the time is right. Lysandra inhaled, a slow, careful breath she hadn't taken in centuries. Soren stared at them both like they were rewriting physics in front of him. You two, he whispered, are going to destroy me. Rion almost smiled. Let's try not to destroy anyone. Too late, Soren muttered. The universe just changed its trajectory. Lysandra looked at Rion one last time before stepping toward the entrance. I will meet you on the ridge tonight, she said. Alone, he nodded. I'll be there. When she left, the tent felt colder, and Soren whispered the truth Rion already knew. You're falling for her. Rion didn't answer. He didn't need to, because even silence was a confession. The night is quiet, too quiet. Two worlds collide in truth, and something unmistakable blooms between them. Night returned to Ashaterra like a slow exhale, cool, dark, heavy with unspoken danger. Rion made his way up the ridge alone, boots crunching softly over the red stone. The air tasted of iron and lightning. Storm clouds gathered again on the horizon, but held themselves in place, waiting. Just like him, he reached the top of the ridge and stopped. She was already there. Lysandra Vael stood on the precipice, her cloak rippling like liquid silver in the wind. The moonlight painted faint lines along her cheekbones, catching the subtle glow under her skin, the living nanoflux that sustained her, tracing gentle pulses of light with her heartbeat. She heard him before he spoke. "Rion," she said softly without turning. He stepped closer. "You're early." "You are late." He blinked. "I'm exactly on time." She finally turned to face him, a whisper of amusement ghosting across her perfect features. "Humans," she murmured, "always thinking time bends to them." He exhaled, a quiet laugh slipping out. "Maybe we hope it does." "Hope," she said thoughtfully. "You use that word often." "It's what we cling to." "And what clings to you," she whispered. He didn't ask what she meant. Her words had layers, like the flux woven through her body, like the galaxies she'd lived through. He moved to stand beside her. The ridge overlooked a wide valley, filled with smoking rocks and the flicker of distant rogue scouting lights. Tension thickened the air, but there was something else too. Something neither danger nor strategy could explain. A quiet, a closeness, a recognition. The question she feared. They stood side by side for a long moment before Lysandra spoke again, her voice lower, as if the night itself had ears. "Ambassador Soren is correct about one thing," she said. "Your world will not accept us, standing this way." Rion didn't look away from the valley. "And yours?" She hesitated. "My council will see it as vulnerability." "Because I'm human?" "No." Her eyes flickered to him. "Because you are, you." The word sent a pulse of warmth through his chest. "Lysandra," he said quietly, "why did you want to meet here alone?" She exhaled slowly. "To ask a question I cannot ask in daylight." He turned toward her fully. Her silver-ringed eyes held the raw sharpness of something ancient and the tremble of something new. "What question?" he asked. She stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that he felt the faint hum of her energy. "In your tent," she said, "you told me that love means choosing someone even when it is dangerous." He felt his heartbeat stutter. "Yes. You said humans rush toward connection even when logic defies it." "That's true. And you said," she whispered, "that you cared whether I lived or died, that you would stand with me." He swallowed. "I did." Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "Is that what humans feel when they begin to bond?" Bond. The Kaerathi word carried a meaning heavier than romance. It meant alignment. It meant shared fate. It meant direction of the heart. Rion breathed slowly, grounding himself. "Yes," he said softly, "or at least the beginning of it." Her pupils dilated slightly, an involuntary response. Her nanoflux pulsed brighter along her throat, betraying her calm facade. "I fear this feeling," she admitted. "I do not understand it, I do not control it, and I am not accustomed to being vulnerable." He stepped closer, carefully. "Lysandra, you don't have to be afraid." "I do." Her voice broke, just a fraction. "That is why I fled my council. That is why they hunt me. Not because I betrayed them, but because I began to feel something they do not understand." Rion's breath caught. "So you didn't just come to study humanity?" "No." Her gaze locked on his. "I came because you make me see myself differently." The words hit him like a slow, steady impact, more powerful than any explosion. "Lysandra," he whispered. The wind whipped around them, scattering dust and silver light. For a moment the universe felt very small. Just a ridge, a sky full of lightning, and two beings who weren't meant to find comfort in each other. Yet did. She lowered her gaze. "I do not know if your word, love, applies here, or if it can, but something inside me shifts when I am near you." His heart hammered painfully. "Tell me what shifts." "I listen differently. I think differently. The flux responds differently." Her voice trembled. "And I want to protect you in ways I should not." Silence collapsed between them like velvet. Rion took a breath, then another. Slowly, gently, he reached out, not to touch her skin, but to offer his hand. Open, unassuming, Human. Lysandra looked at it as though he'd offered her a star. Humans touch so easily, she whispered. You don't have to take my hand, he said softly. It's just here, if you want it. She hesitated. For a queen who'd lived 20,000 years, this was the most dangerous moment of all. Slowly, achingly, she lifted her hand and placed her fingers in his. The instant their skin met, light flared. Nanoflux rushed under her skin in a bright, luminous wave, reacting instinctively to her emotional surge. Rion felt warmth ripple through his arm, through his chest, settling deep inside him. She gasped, startled. The flux reacts to connection, she said breathlessly. I cannot suppress it. Rion tightened his grip gently. You don't have to. She stared at their joined hands, pupils wide, breath unsteady. This is forbidden, she whispered. And yet, he murmured, you're still standing here. Her eyes lifted to his. And you, she said softly, you are not running. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I'm not. Her voice dropped to a tremor. I could destroy you. Then why haven't you? A long, trembling breath. Because, she whispered, your presence quiets my instincts, and your voice steadies my chaos, and your courage pulls me closer. Rion's chest tightened. Lysandra. She stepped in, so close he felt the warmth radiating from her nanoflux-laced skin, so close the air between them thickened with electricity. You make my existence feel, she exhaled shakily, less empty. Something broke inside him then, something he didn't know he'd been holding back. He lifted her hand and pressed it gently to his chest, over his heartbeat. This is yours to hear, he whispered, if you want it. Her breath caught completely. Her voice was barely a sound. I do. Their foreheads touched, tentative, trembling, impossibly intimate. Her hand remained against his chest, his breath mingled with hers. Two beings from different worlds, different centuries, different destinies, leaning into the one truth they could not deny. Connection, bond, beginning. But fate was listening, and fate was not gentle. The interruption. A sudden crack of distant gunfire shattered the moment. Rion jerked his head up. Lights flickered across the far ridge. A hostile formation, large, coordinated, advancing rapidly. Lysandra's nanoflux pulsed a warning. They found me again. Rion grabbed her hand, pulling her close. Then they'll have to get through me. She looked at him, stunned, shaken, changed. This is what I feared, she whispered. What grows between us will make us targets, both of us. And, Rion said, gripping her hand tightly, I've already chosen. Her eyes softened with something luminous, something that looked dangerously close to devotion. Then so have I, she breathed. The ridge lit up with enemy scanners. Shouts echoed across the rocks. The hunt began anew, but Lysandra and Rion stood side by side, closer than ever, hands still joined, ready to fate whatever storm came next. Together. Always together.